Welcome to What the Health? Where anything health is fair game as we tackle the trends and bust the myths about health and wellness. Here are your hosts, Dr. Dan and Angela Toro.
And welcome to another What the Health podcast. I am your host, Dr. Dan, here with my co-host,
Angela. How's it going, guys? I guess I'll get it out of the way. You guys know the drill by now, but we're here for informational purposes only, in no way offering individualized medical advice. Always talk to your trusted healthcare provider before making changes to your lifestyle.
Very good.
All right, that being said.
What are we talking about today?
What are we talking about today? Cellular communication.
Excellent. Why is that important?
Why is that? And we're not talking about cell phones.
No, we're not talking about cell phones. That's a good point.
Not that type of cellular communication.
No, the basic unit of life that is inside of our bodies, that estimated 50 to 100 trillion cells that make up the bag of cells that are you and I and everyone else. Those cells, in order to create or promote a healthy civilization or a healthy individual, need to be communicating properly, right? Because if the heart cells are doing their own thing and liver cells are doing their own thing and the skin cells are doing their own thing and no one's communicating or coordinating an effort into keeping the body healthy, well then that's where you get a bunch of miscommunication and you can get crazy diseases start to show up. So
what the heck does that have to do with?
What the heck does that have to do with you? And what can you do about it? I think is the more important question, which I think we'll get to at the end. But I think it's important to understand how the body is broken up and what are its ways of communicating with these cells, right? Because again, we have so many different cells in our body. And we talk about this all the time, that the body is always trying to promote health. It's trying to promote adaptation. It's trying to adapt to its internal and external environment. If you cut yourself, you don't have to think about anything. I punctured my finger this morning.
I was going to say, as you're sitting there with your Sesame Street Band-Aid.
Yes, exactly. And I don't have to do anything to that puncture wound, other than covering it with a Band-Aid. Again, it's going to heal itself, a little bit painful as it's doing it, but it's going to heal that up, and within 2 or 3 days, I won't even know it's there. So that's the amazingness of the body. You're drinking that coffee. That coffee is going to be, spike your spike your adrenaline for a short period of time, hopefully. But again, what you have for breakfast or lunch or dinner, those particles, those compounds are going to be broken down in your digestive system, absorbed into your bloodstream, and then sent out, through your bloodstream to all 50 trillion cells. And the breakfast that you had this morning is going to start to become skin cells, liver cells, heart cells, blood cells, and become the new you, right? So
that's why people say that you literally are what you eat, and people don't think about that a lot when we just think of. A lot of times we just think of food related to weight. That seems to be the only time people really start to think about their diet is when they want to lose weight. And that's, I think a lot of our education system has done a disservice because it does kind of talk about that with food being related to weight. But as you just said, it's what you put in your body in some way is going to be broken down and either used or has to be eliminated, and that process is going to show itself in some way. So
and if it can't be eliminated because it's you're eating too much of the wrong things, then it starts to get stored in areas that you don't want it to be stored, and it's largely stored inside the cells.
Exactly.
So then you become toxic.
Exactly.
That's why you hear stories of people who start losing weight, and they actually start having all these symptoms, headaches, because their body is literally detoxifying as they start to burn fat cells, and those cells come down to a healthier weight or size. A lot of those toxins are then released, and if you don't have a healthy way of grabbing onto those and releasing them, then yes, it becomes a major issue. So again, we have to get back to what we're going to talk about today is the cellular communication. So all of these cells have to communicate and coordinate, just like in any relationship. If you don't have good communication, I remember our father at one point when I was very early on in my interest in women. He talked about, well, if you're going to be in a relationship, communication is the key. And so that holds true to so many things in life. If you're going to be in a relationship with anything, especially a person, but especially as 50 trillion cells that make up our body, if they don't have good communication with one another, then again the body can start to break down. You can start to have disease processes. So we really want to talk about what are the three main ways that the body communicates, and then really what can we do about optimizing those methods of communication throughout the body, because there are little things that we can do to help promote that communication process. So do you want to go through those three, or do you want me to?
Well, I mean, again, there's tons of cells in the body, but when we're talking about the three specific systems that are communicating
the primary role
for health, when we're talking about that, we're looking at the nervous system, the endocrine system, and the immune system. And nervous system, you hear us talk about all the time. Obviously, that's what the big one that we're, when you're looking at the spine and removing subluxations, and as far as making your nervous system work effectively, that's part of chiropractic. Your endocrine system is your hormones, and then your immune system, people I think are pretty familiar with. Immune system, obviously, part of processing foreign invaders and keeping you from getting sick, or as we talk about, having the appropriate
healthy response.
The healthy response to yes. So having you spike a fever or vomit or have inflammation or whatever is needed to clear that foreign invader.
Yep.
And often I think those systems are thought about separately. People, if you're, constantly getting sick, you're probably going to get sent to an immune specialist to see what's going on with your, immune system.
Yeah,
if you're
an allergist.
If you're, if you're having a lot of issues that, might seem like there might be a hormone issue, you're going to get sent to an endocrinologist. If, you're having issues with, nerve, pain or, things like that, you'll probably get sent to somebody, hopefully a chiropractor, but maybe somebody else that specializes in like the nervous system. So we think about those things so separately, but that's one of the things that, again, we're realizing more and more, and I think chiropractic's playing a big part in that, is there's such a huge connection with these, and I'll let you go more into that, but I think that just people need to, we talk about it all the time. It's like you can't, if you think about yourself and all these different
like
parts
a machine,
of these, it's just, that's not how people work. It's just, we are such an interconnected set of systems. And so if you try to, we always talk about the pillars of health, the physical, the mental, emotional, the biochemical, and you can try to focus on one, but if the other two, or you can focus on two, if one of them's off balance, you're not going to be able to fully get to that state of health. So
one of the pillars falls, a three-legged stool does not stand.
It does not.
Well, yeah, so I think it's important to, again, just, understand that, the holistic aspect of the body and how it's so intricately put together, which is why, I'm, and many people within my profession and holistic healers, we're so programmed to say, hey, this part isn't working in our body, so what do we want to do? Cut it out, take it out, We do that from such a young age, people with, kids with inflamed tonsils or adenoids. So, again, rather than trying to address, well, why are they becoming chronically inflamed? And we say chronically versus acutely. If you're exposed to a virus, that's around your throat and your mouth, like for those areas to become inflamed, they're very highly concentrated with immune cells that are designed to fight foreign invaders or and keep a good balance between external and internal, communication and adaptation. So, but we're so quick to just like say, well, they're becoming inflamed all the time and swollen all the time, so let's just take them out. I had an example of I think a friend of mine who I saw on social media recently that this person is having to get their gallbladder out.
Yeah, so
and it's like, rather than address, well, why is the gallbladder being going into spasm? There's no questions as to, well, why is the gallbladder acting the way it is, going into spasm, causing you pain? It's we'll just take it out without the conversation, because again, what do we think? Oh, the gallbladder is just a storage place for digestive enzymes. Well, those digestive enzymes are necessary. They're important for you to be able to digest your food. Yes, your liver still makes them, but it's not going to get into your digestive tract as quickly as if it's stored and can be contracted and easily squirted in. So again, I always say, someone who doesn't have a gallbladder, they should be on some sort of digestive enzyme supplement around the time that they're eating, especially their 2 biggest meals of the day, because that's going to support their digestion. And we all know it starts with digestion. If we're not digesting our food properly, then those nutrients, as we said in the beginning, don't get to the cells and don't feed the proper nutrition for the energy of the body.
And if they're not getting broken down properly, it's just making the body, making it that much harder for it, not just to use, but then again, to eliminate. So what's happening? It's getting, those toxins are getting stored somewhere.
Or if it's not being broken down properly, then you go into like the hyperactive immune system because, a lot of these proteins, if they're not digested and gone through the bloodstream and carried appropriately in the bloodstream, well, now they look like foreign invaders. So now the immune system starts reacting to those. And if they get into the joint, they cause arthritis. If they get into, the fat cells, they cause toxicity or increased weight gain. And so go on and on and on down the list. It all works together. There's a reason we weren't born with excessive parts. We were
except
born...
the appendix. Still, juries, have they figured out?
It's the same thing. And actually, there is research showing that people who have their appendix taken out have increased risk of colon cancers because it's the same thing. It's a concentration of immune cells, and that's just it.
I don't really see a way around that, though, if your appendix gets appendicitis.
And there are cases in emergency situations when those things need to be taken out. But again, the emergency, we have to get it out versus, okay, it's a little bit swollen. What can we do to help rectify that? And again, if you know ahead of time the history of the person and help them make changes to their lifestyle, then they never get to a point where their appendix, it gets to a point where it's an emergency rupture situation. Again, I think there's a lot of cases where gallbladders, appendices, tonsils are taken out under the quote-unquote emergency situation when maybe if we would have monitored for a little bit longer that it could have been a different situation. But we're just, again, we're in a society, we're in a system, right? We talk about this disease care system, this disease management system. That's the problem, right? That's the inflammation. That's the problem. So we're just going to take it out. So, all right, I'll get off my soapbox for a second and go back to the communication, the cellular communication. So you mentioned the 3 different systems of the body, right? The nervous system, the endocrine system, the immune system. They all communicate together. We know that the nervous system is the primary, the master. I don't like to call it control system as much as it's the master coordinator, and really it's the master coordinator because of its speed of being able to recognize different changes in the environment, both internal and external. And so if you look at the nervous system responds over milliseconds. I mean, it is so fast depending on what different nerve fibers go at different rates. But it's very, very quick to respond. Whereas the hormone system really responds over minutes. Okay, it's a little bit more of a slower change in development, and then the immune system is really over days, and that's where again you recognize an invader. You might not spike a fever immediately, but maybe your tonsils get swollen. The body starts recognizing these different things, and then a day or 2 later you spike a fever and you go through that immune response. And again, a lot of diseases, they have anywhere from a cycle from the initial recognition to the body's ridding of it. You're looking at a average cycle of 3 to 14 days depending on the virus it's trying to take care of. So these different systems, they have different messenger molecules, and that's the big thing. And one of the greatest books I ever read was called Molecules of Emotion by Candace Pert. And this was recommended to me by my biochemistry professor in chiropractic school. But I read this book, and she was on the original research that kind of talked about how these receptors, she was studying opiate receptors, and how these opiate receptors in the brain were also these messenger receptors in the brain. They also had locations across different areas of the body, and how the body responded to those opiate receptors. So when we look at messenger molecules, it's the old lock and key understanding, right? You have a molecule, that's the messenger molecule, that's the signal, and that's going through the system, and then you have to have a receptor on another area, the receiver. You can think of radio signal versus receiver. You have to have an area where the messenger is sent, and then the signal is received. So these different communication systems, the nervous system uses the messenger molecules known as neurotransmitters, okay? And then you have the endocrine system, which uses what are called hormones, okay? And then you have the immune system, which uses the messenger molecules of cytokines. Well, what research has started to understand, again, with the vastness of the communication power within our body, it's not that nerves only communicate to nerves, and hormone cells only communicate to hormone cells, and immune cells only communicate with immune cells. No, what they have found is that nerve cells, neurotransmitters, can turn on signals in the hormone and the immune system, and vice versa. Then the hormones, released from endocrine cells can stimulate or signal to the nervous system, and then the same thing with the cytokines being released from the immune cells can then stimulate the hormones and the nervous system. So it's really a massive network, a web communication system within our body, where all of these different types of cells are signaling to other types of cells, so that our body can really function in a beautiful harmony, and really adapt to its environment, right? That's the simplest definition of health that we talk about all the time. Our body needs to recognize changes in the environment, both internal changes and external changes, and make appropriate changes and adaptations to that environment. And the people who do that the most successfully, they're the ones that are the healthiest beings on earth. So clearing those communication pathways and make sure we're optimizing those communication signals, that is what is going to help optimize your health and well-being.
Yeah.
So what do we do then? I guess what do we do then to help optimize those pathways? Because again, we can get into a dissertation that'll talk. There's again research on this. It could go on for days and days and days. There's whole conferences. In fact, there's different. They've actually started calling in research the neuroendocrine system, or the neuroendocrine immune system, or the psychoneuroendocrine immune system. So it's like they've started calling this system, this network communication within the body. They blended these names because they see the massive intricacies and the cross references and the cross communication between all of these systems. So, so really, we're not here to get into that nitty gritty and the biochemistry of it all, but we're here to what can we do on the personal level to help optimize these communication systems? Yeah,
and again, I think it comes back down to realizing that it makes it more complicated, where what's presenting as a hormone issue, is it really a hormone issue or is it something else? Again, if you're constantly getting sick, is it an issue with your immune system, or is there something else going on? And so that's ultimately, again, it's coming back to looking at the whole body. And the one thing we talk about, and you can go listen to we have entire podcasts on inflammation and on diet and on, did we do one on hormones yet? I can't remember. we have
healthy hormones.
So basically all what we talk about in all of these other podcasts is the answer. So it's about making sure that you're, one, limiting the amount of toxicity you're putting in your body, so that you're limiting that, the things that can interfere with the communication, and then addressing the areas of miscommunication, which is one of the big things that chiropractic does, specifically with the nervous system. But that's why, based off everything we just talked about, all that interconnectedness, that's why, people that come under chiropractic care and have that regular care and remove those subluxations, might get sick less often, might start to have some balance with their hormones and other symptoms that maybe they weren't expecting. And I say might because, again, we're not saying you get adjusted and all of your problems are going to go away. I
knew a chiropractor who died once. So.
And that's, it's like, But again, by at least starting with that, getting one of the systems under control, by getting the nervous system under control, and then if you can start to see progress in the other areas as well. Especially if you're talking about people that are coming in battling years, of just chronic toxicity, chronic inflammation. That's it's a lot to have to kind of clean up and correct, but
all at once. Yeah, and again, doing that without a clear nervous system, without a clear functioning or communicating nervous system, makes it that much more difficult. I always say when you have a subluxation, you use that term already, and for if anyone's new to the podcast, a subluxation is a motion restriction or misalignment of the spine that interferes with the nervous system's communication. It basically, the way I look at it is, you can go out and cut your grass with a lawnmower, okay? But if you have a subluxation, that's like running your engine with the throttle on, okay? So the engine will run, but it's not going to run nearly as efficiently, okay? It has to work a lot harder because, again, that throttle is only there to get it started, and then you kick it into, high gear. But, when you have a subluxation, it really comes down to the miscommunication. It's like static on your cell phone, okay? The messages might still go through, but they're going to be distorted, disturbed, okay? And that can lead what chiropractic calls dis-ease, right? It's not disease, which is what medicine talks about, which is a state of the body. Dis-ease is just that. It's a lack of ease. It's a lack of communication, organization in the body. So, we look and why, chiropractic has found that there is such an intimate connection because of the intimate connection between the spine and the nervous system, right? The brain, sends messages down that spinal cord, and then those messages start to exit out the all the holes in the spine, what they're called intervertebral foramen. But it's not just that either, because then there's also receptors. We talked about, again, you have to have a nerve message and a receiver. You have to have a sender of the message and a receiver of the message. So if your spine is not moving properly, there are messages that are sent or not being sent up into the brain. And that actually generates more, electricity, kind of like a windmill generating electricity for a town. The better the windmill moves, the more electricity is generated. The better your spine moves, the better signaling that's going up into the brain. It's called proprioception. And so, a healthy moving and a healthy aligned spine is so fundamental to your health and well-being that's why we're so adamant about, telling everyone, start there, okay? If you start with chiropractic, again, it's not the end-all be-all to treating any disease condition, but it's helping put the body into a better healing state so that we're going to optimize that neurological communication system. And this has been proven through, the tests that we do, okay? We do infrared thermal imaging, okay? So we look at temperature variation. Temperature, like everything, is controlled by your nervous system. So we are looking to see when we adjust the spine, when we start to get it moving and aligned better, how is that impacting your nervous system? Well, we're seeing that with changes, positive changes in temperature variation. A lot of chiropractors will use what's called surface EMG. So that's electromyography. So they're actually looking at how are the muscles changing, and are they going from like a tense? I always use the term, are you got a bag of pebbles in your spine or in and around the musculature, or are you clay? Nice gentle rolling clay in the musculature. And if you've got someone who's got a bag of pebbles or a bag of rocks in their muscle, they're so tight and tense all the time. There's procedures that surface EMG can actually measure that distortion in the musculature, which again, the musculature is under the direct control and tone of the nervous system. So we can look at all of that and see how the body is changing. And there's many other variables that you can look at and measure to see how the nervous system is changing. And different chiropractors use different things. But I always say, find someone who's using those tests so that you can, monitor how your system is improving over time. So just like, with medical doctors, they do a great job looking at the blood and looking at what's in the blood, looking at hormone concentrations in the blood, or immune concentrations in the blood, or, different invaders. They're great at looking and analyzing the blood, and then hopefully coming up with ways to help to optimize that, and so that's what, if you go to the nervous system first, much of your communication will start to enhance, and then you'll be able to really start to dial in, well, what's the next step, what's the next phase of helping my body get healthy and stay healthy. And that's where you can then start to eliminate questions of, well, is this an immune problem or a hormone problem or a nervous system problem, or again, is it all tied up into one one basic thing. So yeah, that's one way that, that's the primary way that we do it, I think, is by way of the nervous system as a foundation to your health and well-being. We get that spine moving and aligned better. You're going to have better communication in the nervous system, which by way is going to really help the body just get into a better state of healing.
Yeah. And I think we sometimes get people that come in and they just, which is great, but they're so gung-ho, they're like, okay, well tell me what exercises to do, and I want to, fix my diet and all of this and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes, again, after looking at their thermal scan and their x-rays, it's like, there's a lot of things going on in the nervous system that we need to correct first. And it's like, so let's get that, there's some people that, you'll say, let me work with you for a little bit, and then once we start to get the nervous system functioning a little bit better, then you can go work with Angela and make those changes. And the reason for that is, well, one, you just don't want people to get overwhelmed trying to do too much at once. But again, if there's that much interference in the nervous system, we know they're not going to respond to the other changes as well. So it's taking care of getting that under control first, so that, because you get the people that come in, they're like, I don't understand, I've been trying to clean up my diet and exercise, and I'm doing all these things and nothing, it's I'm still not feeling good, or I'm still in pain, or I'm still not losing weight, whatever it is. And again, we know if there's something else going on, whether it's your hormones are out of whack, or your nervous system's out of whack, whatever it is.
That's the official diagnosis.
That is, yes. That's that and being jacked up. that's our official diagnosis for a lot of people. Getting the things we can't see sometimes under control first is really, really going to help with your body then being able to actually respond to the things that you may be doing. And you might be making the right choices, but again, if that communication's not working, then it's like, think of that game of telephone as we used to play as kids, and if there's that communication breakdown by the time you get down to the last, you always hated being the kid at the end too, because you knew you were going to say it completely wrong. It's but
that's just it. It's like the message gets through, but it's a completely distorted, different message than what it is. And that's why I tell people with, helping your body communicate better by way of this adjustment. So I think that's the first point that we always try and get to, is if you don't have a chiropractor, I honestly, I try and say this, with as much humility as possible, is that I really feel that our society would do much better if people looked at their chiropractor as their first level of health of practitioner that they went and saw first and foremost, before the medical doctor or the primary care provider. Because again, I think a lot of times we just look at and the medical doctors have amazing tests and diagnostics that they can do, but then I think a lot of times what happens is you get over inundated with information, and then I think what happens is that the step from here's all the information, now what do we do with it? That's where the breakdown starts to happen in our system, because again, in our sick care system, the answer in medicine is drugs, surgery, radiation, and that's unfortunately that's the toolbox, that's the treatment method of medicine. I think it's gotten a little bit better in some ways, but I think there's other areas that it can be very, very detrimental. So looking at a chiropractor as, okay, you're coming in here, let's look to the nervous system first, since that's the master coordinating system of the body. Let's let's get that under control, okay, as far as we can. And then once we start seeing some good positive changes there, now let's do some blood work. Now let's, and I'm not saying the chiropractor does that. I'm saying, then, you can work with you can refer out. You can work with a good, integrative medical specialist or, integrative medicine. Functional medicine is becoming very popular in society now because, again, they're looking at trying to take this information and condense it and then figure out what to do with it. Can you make lifestyle changes? Mm-hmm. Do you need to add supplementation? Do you need to take away supplementation? I mean, we again, whole podcast on that.
Oh, yeah,
the supplement, some people are just like so gung-ho about taking every supplement under the sun. It's like, wait, time out a minute. Can we just get a good, healthy, diet and then supplement from there if necessary? But, when you go to the nervous system as the foundation, and then that starts, getting things under control and communicating better. Now you can get more targeted, more specific in your approach in terms of trying to overcome a specific condition, whether it's a headache that's not clearing up, or a digestive issue, or whatever it might be. And so again, you start looking at those other pillars, as you get the foundation of that nervous system firing and functioning better.
Yeah, and that's why we had this. We're still in our generational health month, and that's why we're so passionate about getting people in early, because again, it's a lot easier to find and correct things before you're having all these symptoms, before you're on the laundry list of medications. It's not to say that we can't help at that point, but if we're trying to do what we're doing and you're on all these medications, listen to every commercial for medication. They list that laundry list of side effects at the end. Like every single medication, even an Advil has side effects. Yeah. So it's if we're now trying to battle, we don't know. Okay, well, what's coming from your nervous system or what's just coming from these medications?
Exactly.
And it just makes it a lot harder versus if you come in, if maybe your doctor's talking about putting you on something. Again, what's the harm of starting chiropractic? If it doesn't work, medication's always going to be an option. That's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's not going away.
Surgery is always going to be an option. So it's these other options are always going to be there. And but if you have your tonsils out, they're not coming back.
Yeah.
Thyroid's a big one. People getting their thyroid, fried, or having, with the medications and our medications so long that eventually it does destroy the thyroid. And it's like, okay, well, or maybe we can try to make some of the lifestyle changes first, see if we can get that under control. And then again, worst case, you can always.
Well, and it's not even worst case, but let's look at it from another point of view. Let's say that your body does have to undergo some surgery. Let's say you need a hip replacement. Let's say you need a knee replacement because, maybe you did some sports when you were younger, you were in an accident when you were younger, and just, your body is just degraded, that joint so bad, it is degraded so bad that, it's going to give you a much better quality of life. Well, wouldn't it make sense to optimize the communication system, the nervous system of the body? If you optimize that before you undergo that procedure, then what is that going to do in terms of your recovery and then your ability on the back end of that to get through that procedure and recover from that procedure? So, and again, going back then is, we can't, what's our tree analogy that we always use? The best time to plant a tree. It's 20 years ago, but next best time is today. But, if we look at that from our kids and grandkids' perspective, how can we help them not build up this debt of massive toxicity and miscommunication, distortion, disease in the body? How can we help them never to get to that point? And it really starts with a healthy foundation and a healthy nervous system. Not to mention, kids respond so beautifully to chiropractic adjustments. Again, you've seen babies adjusted in the office.
Yeah,
it's just amazing. They go from this pent up tension, tight distortion, in their system, and then they get this gentle, peaceful adjustment, and their whole body just goes. And adults do that too, but just, not quite to the extent as an infant or toddler. So there is, there's something to be said for getting, the master coordinating system, get it into a state of harmony, get it into a state of optimized communication, and then everything else is just going to function that much better. So then we can start being more targeted in the approach of looking to see if you need support with your hormones, or looking for support with your immune system. And we always talk about what you need to take in terms of diet, and we talk about that. We don't have to go into that here because we have so many other podcasts. But again, good healthy diet is wonderful, but if you're not getting enough sleep, that in terms of not just hormone regulation but immune system function, if you're not getting enough sleep, your immune system is not going to be good.
Or if you're chronically stressed.
Absolutely. If you're constantly in that fight or flight state, your body is not, because and the reason is that the body is set up that way, because if you are in a fight or flight, if you're literally in a fight or flight for your life, you don't need your immune system to be taken care of.
You're not worried about long term.
You're not worried. Yeah, because again, that's days, weeks, months into the future. You're not worried about healing an old scar, right? Because if your body is literally not going to survive the next couple minutes of a fight or flight
state, cares?
It doesn't matter. So the energy systems of the body are literally set up for that, and your nervous system is so good at being able to volley back and forth between that fight or flight and rest and digest and healing state. That's what it's there for. The problem is, we've traded our literal, fight or flight, like, hey, saber-toothed tiger jumps out of the bush. We've traded those actual threats with mental, emotional, psychological threats. How am I going to pay my rent?
The Sunday scaries. That was a new term you just learned.
I just learned about that. Oh my God, I never heard that before.
Yeah, the Sunday scaries. That's like a new thing for our generation of people just literally almost going into a state of panic and anxiety on Sunday night, dreading the start of their work week because they hate their jobs that much, or they're that stressful, or they're that overworked, underpaid, underappreciated, whatever it is. Just these people in these toxic work environments, and so it's literally a thing.
That just boggles my mind. Again, I've been so blessed, and being able to create it, and I talk about this in our book too, right? The Design to Heal. It's like, figure out what you're passionate about, right? That should literally, in my mind, that should literally be the, our primary education system, kindergarten through 12th grade. Your whole goal is to help that child figure out what they love to do, not just what they love to do, but what their strengths are and good at. And figure out then how to optimize, how do you get paid well to do it so that you can then help others do the same in their life. And, so again, I've been so blessed. I'm not saying that I've never had a stressful day. Again, opening a business is very stressful. Not having an income until you're, 26, 27 years old can be very stressful. But again, God gotten to a point, this whole concept of retirement is just foreign, to me, because I will do what I'm doing to some extent, and I think you will too, right? I mean, you're gonna be helping people, coaching people, training people to some extent for the rest of your life because it's something that you love to do. So that's what I think we need to do a better job of societally, is figure out what you're passionate about, and then figure out how to help others do the same. And then again, get paid well to do it, and that's going to help remove the Sunday scaries, and, get that mental emotional state. And it's funny, we can go into, discussions of people who just after conversation, we don't never tell people to quit their job, but after conversations of like how this is actually impacting their health, and it gets very real to them, over the course of a year or two, we've had people leave their jobs because they realize it's just not worth it anymore. It's not worth the stress and strain on their health and well-being. So, that's.
We might have gone a little off topic there, but it does. It all comes back to, again, it's all interconnected. It's all, you can't look at the body as, it's not a chop shop. You can't look at parts and pieces. It really has to come down to having that holistic approach if you really want to talk about just being healthy and not, masking symptoms of disease. It's really looking at moving towards health.
When you look at that then from the micro level, that's the cellular communication, and we're talking about how your body communicates within itself. But then if you become a better communicator internally, okay, so you become healthier, well, then how does that reflect on the relationship with your, your fiance, your husband, your wife, your kids, okay? So now you become a better communicator, within the civilization within your own household. And then if those relationships are good, that communication is good, now that becomes, you become a better neighbor, you become a better, a better business partner. So, and then you just start to see the micro can then lead to the macro in terms of we have a better civilization societally, because we don't have, this distorted, internal, unhealthy, disease environment going on internally. So now that we're actually able to become better reflections of what's going on inside of us.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. I mean, those people as like the happy and healthy people. It's just, it could be a complete stranger, but it's the people that, are smiling and greet you and, are engaged. And and if we have more of that, then I think, like you said, it's just, it really does. It's more than just what's going on inside. It really does, affect the people around you, whether you realize it or not.
It absolutely does. And and there's so much research on this, and so it comes down to how do you optimize your cellular communication internally. And I think it starts with, if you don't have a good chiropractor, get one. If you're already seeing a good chiropractor, good, keep going. And then talk about what we can do to help the other areas, the mental, emotional stress management strategies, the movement, and the lifestyle, the diet, and what you're putting into your body and how that impacts you. So hopefully that was helpful. And if any of that resonated with you, as always, you can look up more of our podcasts on all the major networks, on our website, Turo, Turo, familychiropractic.com. We have a book. We have so many freaking resources out there. So hopefully you enjoy us talking, and, we'll see you at the next one.
We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
You've been listening to What the Health with Dr. Dan and Angela Toro, brought to you by Toro Family Chiropractic. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.whatthehealth.world.